Nobody will hire me.
I'm not hiring. I'm asking.
We don't hire women who can't keep up.
I've heard that in 6 towns now.
The foreman did not look at her twice before he said it. He did not ask her name, did not ask what she had traveled here for. Sarah's jaw tightened. And for half a second she was not standing in this yard at all. She was 19 again, in a different doorway, a different man saying the same words in the same flat voice. Can't keep up. Won't last the season. Save us both the trouble. She blinked and the yard came back. The foreman had already turned away, already forgotten her. She turned to go, and that is when she saw the horse tied at the post, favoring its left foreleg head low. Nobody else seemed to notice. She crossed to it before she had decided to, crouched, ran her hand down the leg the way she had done 100 times before she had learned that kind of knowledge did not count for anything in most people's eyes. A stone wedged deep in the shoe. She worked it loose with her bare fingers, stood, wiped her palm on her skirt. That's my horse. She turned. A rancher, tall, watching her with an expression that was not asking to be polite. There was a stone, she said. He would have come up lame by the creek road. He looked at the horse. Then at her, really looked, the way the foreman had not bothered to. That true what he said? You cannot keep up? Try me. I am not hiring. He let the silence sit a moment too long. I am asking. Asking what, exactly? Sarah said. You'll see. That's not an answer. No, Jack agreed. It is not. She should have walked away right there. She almost did. But the wagon was already loaded with her one bag, and the sun was already dropping, and she had exactly $4 and nowhere in this town that wanted her. So she climbed up beside a man who would not say what he was hiring her for, and let him drive her toward whatever it was. He did not fill the silence with talk. She was grateful for that. Most men felt obligated to narrate themselves. Jack just drove, jaw set, like the road required his full attention even where it ran straight. They were not even down off the wagon before she heard it, a low, panicked bawling from somewhere past the barn, and under it, a man's voice raised in a way that was not calling for help so much as demanding it. Jack, get out here, she's stuck down in the drainage ditch and I cannot. Jack was already moving. Sarah was 2 steps behind him before she had decided to follow. A heifer had gone down into the deep ditch line at the property boundary, wedged sideways where the bank had crumbled, legs tangled, eyes rolling white with panic. A ranch hand, young, maybe 16, all elbows and no plan, was hauling on a rope tied to nothing useful, making the animal thrash worse with every pull. Stop pulling, Sarah said. The boy looked at her like she had spoken out of turn. Jack did not correct her. She will break her own leg fighting that rope if you keep at it, Sarah said, already moving down the bank, already reading the animal the way she read the horse, not what it looked like, but what it was about to do. Get behind her. Not the rope, her hindquarters. We push before we pull, or she never gets the leverage to stand. Nobody asked where she had learned that. There was not time. You, she said to the boy, there. Jack, here, on this side when I say. Jack did not argue with a woman he had hired an hour ago for a job he had not named. He just did it. It took 4 tries and 1 long, ugly scramble of mud and hide and rope before the heifer found her footing and hauled herself up onto the bank, sides heaving, alive. The boy sat down hard in the mud, laughing the way people laugh when they have stopped being scared. Jack did not laugh. He looked at Sarah instead, and there was something in his face that had not been there back in town, not surprise exactly. Recognition. You have done that before, he said. More times than I have been hired for it. She wiped her hands on her skirt, the same gesture as the horse, like it was becoming a habit already. Is this what you meant? She asked. Back in town? Is this the asking? Let's see how the rest of the week goes. That's still not an answer. No, he said again, and this time there was almost a smile in it. It isn't. That night, the boy, Sarah, learned his name was Tommy, and that Jack paid him more in patience than in wages, told her over supper that the heifer was not the first thing to go wrong that month, and would not be the last, and that Jack did not usually let strangers anywhere near trouble like that. He let you in fast, Tommy said, like it meant something. Maybe he was just short-handed. Tommy looked at her the way people look at someone who has not figured something out yet. He did not say anything else. He did not have to. Across the table, Jack ate in silence, watching her without quite looking like he was doing it, and Sarah understood, without a word spoken, the way she had read the heifer, the way she had known the horse, that whatever she had just been asked for, it was not finished being asked yet. Tommy was already whistling before sunup, like nothing had gone wrong the day before. Sarah had coffee on and biscuits in the oven before anyone asked. Her hands did not know how to sit still, even when her mind had not decided if she was staying. Then the old woman came down the stairs. She stopped in the doorway and looked at Sarah the way a person looks at something left on their porch they did not order. Who's this? Not to Sarah. To Jack, just in from the barn. Sarah. She's helping out a while. Helping with what? Whatever needs it. Jack's grandmother. Nobody had said so yet, Sarah only knew it from the set of his jaw. Had a girl helping last spring. Did not last a month. One before that ran off with her wages still owed. Grandma. I am only saying. She took the coffee Sarah had already poured, drank it before she could decide if accepting counted as something. Strangers get tired of ranch work quick, or they get their hooks into the wages and vanish. Sarah set down the biscuits. I have been tired before. Have not quit yet. And I have no interest in anybody's wages but my own. The old woman looked at her properly, for the first time. Said nothing. Took a biscuit. It was the closest thing to a truce either of them would admit to. Her name was Hattie. It came out sideways, the way most things about her did. Tommy said it at the barn one morning. He did not realize Sarah had not heard it yet. She's particular about her coffee, he said. She will not say so. She just will not drink it if it's wrong. Wrong how? Weak. He said, she likes it near black. Sarah changed it the next morning. She never mentioned it. Hattie never mentioned noticing. But her cup was empty by the time the biscuits came out, every day that week, where it had not been the first. Two women who would rather lose a war than admit they had started liking each other. Hattie was kneading bread when Sarah came in, hands trembling hard enough to scatter flour with every push. Let me finish that. I've kneaded bread since before your mother was born. She pushed harder. The bowl slid, dough half falling before she caught it against her own chest, flour dusting her like snow. Sarah reached to help. I said I do not need it. I heard you the first time. Hattie scraped the dough back herself, hands shaking worse now, refusing to look up. Everybody who's offered to help me eventually decided I was too much trouble, or too old to be worth it. I would rather do poorly on my own than get used to somebody who will not stay long enough to matter. It came out harder than she had meant. A wound talking, not the woman. Sarah said nothing. Set a clean towel within reach and went back to her own work. Hattie finished the bread herself, badly, one side scorched black by the time it came out of the oven. She served it anyway, and dared anyone at the table to comment on it. Nobody did. A few days later, Sarah asked for something instead of offering it. Will you teach me Jack's favorite dish? I have been cooking blind since I got here. Why does that matter to you? Because he works from before sunup and never complains, and it seemed a small enough thing to get right. Hattie studied her, guard working against itself. Molasses cake, she said finally. Since he was a boy. Still burns his mouth on it every single time. Show me. Her hands still shook, but she guided Sarah's through it anyway, correcting her grip without much patience for how long it took. When the cake came out right, something in the old woman's face gave way. Not quite a smile. Close enough to be its cousin. He will ask who made it, Hattie said. Tell him it was both of us. Save yourself the trouble of what he will make of it. What exactly would he make of it? Neither of them said. On Hattie's worst days, Sarah cut everything small before it reached the table. No comment, no offer, just done. Hattie noticed being noticed. She said nothing about it for a long while. Then, passing the bread instead of waiting for it, "You would have made a fine daughter if you were mine." She kept eating, like she had not said anything remarkable at all. Sarah went still, the words landing somewhere she had not guarded well enough. Across the table, Jack had gone still too, watching them both with a look he did not try to explain. He did not need to. Everyone at that table already understood what had just changed. A storm rolled in fast off the ridge. Jack and Tommy were out with the herd. Hattie's hands, already unsteady, shook worse with the thunder, an old fear from a lightning strike that took a barn and nearly a life years back. Sarah did not ask what to do. She sat with her through it, talking about nothing, the mending, the coffee, an old recipe of her mother's, until the thunder moved off and Hattie's hands went still. "You did not have to stay in here with an old woman," Hattie said after, not meeting her eye. "I know. I wanted to." When Jack came in soaked through an hour later, the first thing Hattie said was not about the herd. "Your Sarah sat through the whole storm with me." She did not so much as flinch. He said nothing, but the look he gave Sarah across the room stayed with her longer than the thunder had. Jack saw it before anyone said it aloud, his grandmother's sharp edges rounding, just slightly, around Sarah. The way she had stopped announcing every kindness as an insult before she let herself accept it. "She likes you," he said, out by the well, watching the light go down. "She tolerates me." She called you my Sarah, and did not correct herself. That's not tolerating. Sarah did not have a name for it either. But standing there, she found she wanted to keep earning it. Not because anyone required it of her now, but because for the first time in longer than she could count, she was not bracing for the day someone told her to leave. Neighbors came from 3 ranches over for the harvest dinner. Tables end to end, in the yard, more pie than anyone could eat, a fiddle player who had clearly had a drink before his supper. Sarah moved through the crowd with plates and coffee, the way she had once moved through kitchens that were not hers. Except this time, nobody looked at her like she did not belong in it. Not everybody. 2 women by the pie table bent their heads together at the sight of her, the kind of quiet that was not quiet at all. Sarah did not let it touch her face. She had had a lifetime of practice at that. Jack crossed the yard and stood beside her, closer than the moment strictly required. He did not say anything about the women. He did not have to. Somebody in that yard had already decided Sarah did not belong here. It would not be the last time it came out loud. She found Jack in the barn that night, mending a length of fence wire that did not strictly need mending yet. "That's not broken," she said. "Keeps my hands busy." "Busy doing what, exactly?" He finally set the wire down and looked at her plainly. "Keeping this place standing on my own since a runaway timber wagon took both my parents. I was 12. Young enough that most boys would have still had someone to lean on. My father always told me a Cowboy does not let the dirt slip through his fingers, no matter how hard the winter hits." He rubbed the back of his neck, the closest thing to a nervous gesture she had seen from him. "Grandma's carried more of the grief and the work than she ever let on, and I have spent a long while telling myself I did not need anybody else to carry the rest. Did not expect it to get easier, having somebody else here. Did not expect to want it to either. That's not the same as needing it." "No," he agreed. "But I am starting to think it might be close." She did not have an answer ready for that. She stayed in the quiet of the barn, and neither of them moved to end it. Hattie's hands shook too badly by nightfall to manage her own pins, so Sarah had taken to brushing out her hair before bed. Neither had called it a ritual. It was one anyway. "You have a steadier hand at this than I ever had," Hattie said, watching the lamp flicker instead of the mirror. "My mother used to say a woman's hands tell you everything worth knowing about her." Yours tell me you have done hard things and did not let them make you hard. Some days it's a near thing. I was not kind to you, those first weeks. You were careful. There's a difference. Careful's just what fear calls itself when it wants to sound respectable. The brush kept moving. For once, neither of them reached for more words than that. The next day, Hattie's hands stilled on her mending, mid-stitch, staring at nothing. Hattie! I have been the strong one in this house for so long I have forgotten there's any other way to be. The old woman's voice cracked clean through. Buried my husband out by the ridgeline, then buried my only boy when that timber wagon split apart in the ravine. Left me with a 12-year-old grandson and a ranch that did not care about a mother's tears. I had to raise that boy. I had to keep this place from falling apart around us both, and I never once let myself come undone properly because somebody had to be the one who did not. Her shoulders shook. I am so very tired of being the one who does not. Sarah knelt by the chair and took the old woman's shaking hands in both of hers. You do not have to be fine right now. Not with me. Hattie gripped hard enough to hurt, and wept the kind of weeping that had been owed a long 20 years, for her boy, for her husband, for every hard season carried in total silence. Sarah said nothing else. Nothing else was needed. When it passed, Hattie wiped her face with a trembling hand. Thank you for not telling me it is all right. It is not most days. It just is. 2 nights later, a heifer went into hard labor. Breech. It took Jack's arms and past the elbow and Sarah beside him with a lantern before the calf finally slid free, wet, blinking, alive. They sat back in the straw together, laughing from sheer relief, his shoulder against hers, neither one moving away. She needs a name, Jack said, watching the calf try its legs. That's not mine to give. I am asking anyway. You're the one who pulled her into the world. Feels like that's your right, not mine. Did not do it alone. He nodded at the lantern still in her hand. Would not have gotten her breathing in time without you holding that light steady. That counts for something. Sarah considered the calf, small, damp, blinking against the light. Clover then. For the patch she was born beside. Clover's a fine name for a horse. This one has got more trouble in her than that. She has not even stood up yet and you have already decided she's trouble? Breech calves usually are. Ask any rancher. He was almost smiling now. What about trouble then? Honest, at least. You cannot name a calf Trouble. Why not? Because in 10 years somebody is going to ask why your best milker is named after a disaster, and you will have to explain this exact conversation. Jack laughed, the real kind, the kind she had not heard out of him before. Fine. Clover it is. But I am telling people it was your idea, so if she turns out ornery, that's on you. I can live with that. Before we go any further, did you ever get to name an animal that was really and truly yours, growing up? A calf? A pup? Anything at all? Tell me below, I read every one. Back to Sarah and Jack. Some evenings settled slow, the porch swing creaking soft under the two of them while the sky went from orange to deep blue overhead. You believe in much? Jack asked once, not looking at her, like the question was easier to ask sideways. I believe hard work is its own kind of prayer. Beyond that, I have stopped being certain of much. She looked out at the dark fields. My mother used to say faith was not about being sure. It was about showing up anyway, sure or not. I used to think family was just the people who happened to be left in a house with you. Did not think there was much choosing in it. And now I think maybe there's more choosing in it than I gave it credit for. He did not look at her when he said it, but he did not need to. The county fair came at summer's tail end, string lights strung between the posts, a fiddle band, half the town in their good clothes. Jack crossed the whole dance floor to reach her. I don't dance, Sarah said. Neither do I. We'll be terrible at it together. They were, and it did not matter. Under the lights, Sarah felt something in her chest loosen that had been clenched so long she had stopped noticing its ache, the unfamiliar lightness of being wanted somewhere in public. His hands stayed at her waist a beat longer than the song required. Across the floor, the same two women from the harvest dinner watched, heads bent together again, and this time one of them did not bother lowering her voice. Widows got no business dancing that close to Jack Calloway, especially one his own size. Sarah heard it. Jack's jaw went tight, he had heard it too. Neither of them stepped back. "Let them talk," he said, quiet enough that only she could hear it. For the first time since a train platform 2 towns back, she found she almost meant it when she nodded. The talk from the fair did not stay at the fair. By the next week it had followed them into town, thin and polite on the surface, sharper underneath. Tommy heard the worst of it first at the feed store. "They're saying things," he told Jack, not meeting his eye. "About the arrangement. About Sarah staying in the house without." He stopped, 16 and unused to saying things this size out loud. "Without it being proper, is what they mean. Let them say what they like." "Jack." Tommy hesitated. "Some of them are saying it to Mr. Ashworth. At the bank." Jack's jaw went tight in a way Sarah had learned to recognize. Sunday made it real in a way second-hand talk had not. Sarah felt it the moment she stepped into the churchyard. Conversations dying mid-sentence, glances landing on her and sliding away just as fast. Mrs. Aldridge did not bother lowering her voice. "I do not know how Reverend Hale can preach on decency with that arrangement sitting 3 pews back." "That arrangement has a name," Sarah said, before she could stop herself, "and she's standing close enough to hear you." The churchyard went quiet in a different way then, not gossip anymore. Open staring. Mrs. Aldridge's face colored. She did not apologize. Jack's hand found the small of Sarah's back, steady, and they walked past the whole gathered churchyard without either of them looking away first. It was the same shape as a station platform 2 towns back. The same crowd, the same judgment passed before anyone asked a single honest question. The only difference, this time, someone stood beside her through it. Ashworth came out to the ranch himself 2 days later, in a good coat that did not belong on a working afternoon, a ledger under his arm like a man delivering bad news who wanted the paperwork visible behind it. "Mr. Calloway, I'll get straight to it." He did not touch the coffee had he set out. "The note on this property comes up for renewal in 3 weeks. Ordinarily a formality. I have known your family 30 years, I would sign it without a second thought. But I have had 4 separate callers this week concerned about the moral character of this household. An unmarried woman, unchaperoned, under a bachelor's roof. I know your grandmother is here, Jack, but the whole county knows the state of Mrs. Calloway's hands and failing health. It looks like an excuse, Jack. It reflects on more than your name. It reflects on mine, for continuing to do business with you." Hattie stood so fast her chair scraped hard against the floor. "You have known this family 30 years and you would let gossip decide whether my grandson keeps his own land? I would let it decide whether I keep mine, Mrs. Calloway, which is the position you're putting me in." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "If the arrangement in this house is not made proper before the note comes due, I cannot renew it. The board would have my position if I did." "And if it is made proper?" Jack's voice was very quiet. "Then there is no difficulty at all, and we need not speak of this again." He left the ledger on the table, as if the sight of it might finish the convincing his words had not, and rode off without touching his coffee. Sarah found Jack in the yard after, standing still, looking at nothing. "This is my doing," she said. "If I had never come—" "Don't. Jack, they're threatening to take your father's land. Because of what people think they see when they look at me." Jack finally turned to face her. The flat, unreadable look he had worn the day he met her in town was completely gone, replaced by something raw. "The day I found you in town," Jack said quietly, "you asked what I was asking you for, if I was not hiring a hand." Sarah held her breath. "You never told me." I was asking if you had it in you to stay, Jack said, stepping closer, though his hands stayed at his sides like a man holding himself back. I saw how you handled that lame horse. No pity, just quiet work. I knew my grandmother was dying on her feet trying to keep this place running alone, refusing every bit of help because she was terrified of being a burden. I did not need a hand, Sarah. I needed someone strong enough to stand next to her without breaking her pride. Someone who would not look down on an old woman's grief. He looked out over the dark fields. I have spent my whole life protecting this dirt, thinking that was the only thing that mattered. But these past months, watching you with her, watching you make this house feel like a home instead of just a place we sleep, I am not giving that up because a man in a good coat says we ought to be ashamed. Sarah's voice shook. Jack. Ashworth does not care about that. If I stay, you lose the ranch. I will not be the reason you lose the only thing you have spent your whole life protecting. Worth protecting because someday it should belong to somebody who needs it. For years I thought that was just Grandma. Lately I have started thinking it might be you too if you would let it. So we fight the note. Together. Sarah did not have an answer for that. The fear in her chest did not feel like it belonged to her alone anymore. That frightened her in an entirely different way than being alone in it ever had. Tommy came back from the feed store the next afternoon with a split lip and a look of grim satisfaction that did not match it. What happened to your face? Charlie Reeves said some things about Miss Sarah I was not willing to let stand. Tommy shrugged, wincing. Told him if the bank wants to talk moral character, start with fellas who talk about women that way behind their backs. You did not have to fight anybody for me, Sarah said. Did not feel like a choice. You taught me a not my own father never bothered to. Reckon that's worth a split lip. She packed anyway, an hour before dawn. If she was gone, there was nothing left to gossip about, nothing standing between Jack and the land his family had held for 2 generations. She was 3 steps from the door when Hattie's voice stopped her, sharper than Sarah had ever heard it. Where do you think you're going? Away from the reason this family is about to lose everything. You listen to me. Hattie crossed the kitchen faster than her hands should have let her, gripped Sarah's arm hard. I buried a husband, buried my only boy in that ravine, and carried this family alone for 20 years. I will not watch you walk out that door thinking it is a kindness. You are not the reason this family might lose its land. Small, frightened people are. Don't you dare confuse the two. If I stay, you lose the ranch. If you leave, we lose more than the ranch, and I am too old and too tired to pretend otherwise. Her grip did not loosen. You are not leaving this house unless it is your own choice, made clean, not fear dressed up as sacrifice. Put the bag down. Sarah's hands were shaking. She set it down, slowly, and Hattie pulled her into an embrace that startled them both with how hard it landed. We fight, Hattie said, quieter now. All 3 of us. That's what this family does. Jack found them both in the kitchen minutes later. He did not ask what had almost happened. Just looked at the bag still sitting by the door. Stay, please. I am staying, Sarah said. But Jack, if we are doing this, we do it properly. Not quietly. Not hoping it blows over. We put it in front of the whole town and let them say it to our faces instead of behind our backs. Something like relief and resolve moved through his face at once. Then we call a meeting, he said. Grange Hall. Everyone who's got something to say can say it where we can hear it plainly, and we'll say our piece back. Tommy, listening from the doorway longer than any of them realized, straightened up like he had just been handed a job worth doing. I'll spread the word myself. Curiosity alone will bring half the county. Let them come, Hattie said. I have got a few things to say to some of those women myself. Been saving them up for weeks. That night, Sarah found Jack out by the fence line, looking at the dark shape of the land like a man memorizing it, just in case. Scared. Some. Not of losing it, though, thought I would be if it came to this. He looked at her. Scared of what it would mean if we lost you trying to save it. Newer kind of scared. Have not got the practice with it that I have with the other. We are not losing either one. Not if I have anything to say about it. Whole town's about to hear it whether they want to or not. He almost smiled in the dark. 3 weeks. 3 weeks, she agreed, and let him take her hand, and did not let go of it the whole walk back to the house. The Grange Hall was full by the time they arrived, every bench taken, men standing along the back wall. Ashworth sat near the front, a board member on either side, ledger closed on his lap like the paperwork had already done its part. Jack stood first, before anyone could open the proceedings for him. Most of you know why we're here, so I will not waste breath pretending otherwise. There is a note coming due on my family's land, and some of you have decided the woman living under my roof is reason enough to see it called in. He looked slowly around the room. I would like to hear the reasoning said to my face, since it has been said everywhere else already. Ashworth cleared his throat. It is not personal, Mr. Calloway. It's a matter of, say the word you're circling. Impropriety. That's what you told me in my own kitchen. A murmur went through the room. Ashworth's ears reddened, but he did not back down. The bank has a responsibility to the standards of the community it serves. Whatever my personal feelings, I have a board to answer to. Then let the community speak for itself, Hattie said, standing without waiting to be asked. Her voice carried clean to the back wall. I have lived in this county longer than most of you have been alive, and I have never once seen this town so eager to ruin a good family over the shape of a woman's body and the fact of her being unmarried in a house with work that needed doing. Mrs. Calloway, I am not finished. She turned, taking in the whole room. Sarah Whitfield strung beans until her hands bled rather than complain. Kneaded my bread when my own hands failed me and never once made me feel small for kneading it. Somebody near the front shifted in their seat, like the words had physically landed on them. Sat through a lightning storm holding my hand because she knew I was frightened, and never told a living soul until just now, because that's not the kind of woman she is. Ashworth opened his mouth. Thought better of it. If decency is what you're so concerned about protecting, I would suggest you start by asking what it actually looks like. I promise you it does not look like this room. She sat back down. The silence that followed had a different weight than the one before. Tommy stood next, awkward in his good shirt, 16 and determined all at once. I do not know much about proper. But I watched Miss Sarah pull a calf into the world with her bare hands at 2 in the morning, and never once act like it was beneath her. If that's improper, I do not much want to know what proper's supposed to look like. A woman near the back, one from the harvest dinner, though Sarah never learned her name, rose, hesitant. I'll say it plain, since nobody else will. I was one of the ones talking back at the fair. About her size. About her dancing too close for a widow. I have thought on it since, and I am ashamed. She has done nothing this whole season but work harder than any of us and mind her own business while we minded it for her instead. She sat quickly, like the confession had cost her more than she expected. Ashworth shifted in his seat. Sentiment is well and good, he said, recovering some composure, but sentiment does not settle a note with the board of directors. Then a man near the side door stood, hat in his hands. Sarah went still when she recognized him, the foreman from the yard where she had pulled the stone from Jack's horse, months and a lifetime ago. I turned this woman away from honest work the day she arrived in this county. Told her we did not hire women who could not keep up. He did not quite meet anyone's eye. Same afternoon, I watched her pull a stone from a horse's shoe faster and cleaner than any hand on my own payroll. It has sat poorly with me since. He turned to Ashworth. If a woman's character is what's in question, you could not do better than the one you're threatening to punish. Then Sarah stood. Every face in that hall turned toward her, the same way faces had turned in 6 other towns, in doorways and on station platforms, always cataloging the same things before a single word left her mouth. Her hands wanted to shake. She let them. Her legs were not steady, but she walked to the front anyway, the way she had once, on a platform 2 towns back, when standing still had felt like the only option left. 6 towns told me nobody would hire me, she said. Not because I could not work. Because of how I looked doing it. I believed them, for longer than I would like to admit. She looked at Jack, then at Hattie, then back at the room. But I was never asking anyone to hire me. I was asking someone, anyone, to see past what I looked like long enough to notice what I could actually do. Jack did that before he even knew my name. This family did it every single day since, in ways so small most of you would never have noticed. She turned to Ashworth. The room seemed to hold its breath with her. You want to talk about impropriety? I would call it improper to let gossip decide who deserves a home. I would call it improper to threaten a family's land over what a woman's body looks like standing in a kitchen. 6 towns running, nobody would hire me. This family did not hire me either. Her voice steadied, stronger than she expected. They chose me. That's a different thing entirely, and no board, no note, no gossip in this hall is going to convince me it was the wrong choice. The hall went silent. For the first time, Ashworth looked genuinely uncertain. It was the board member beside him who finally spoke. The bank's concern was never truly about the woman's character. It was the arrangement's propriety in the eyes of the law. He looked between Jack and Sarah. If that arrangement were made proper, a marriage entered into freely, I do not see the bank would have any remaining grounds to withhold the note. Would it, Ashworth? Cornered by his own logic in front of half the county, Ashworth had little choice. It would not. Reverend Hale rose slowly. I would be willing to perform the ceremony this evening if both parties are willing. Seems a shame to make a whole county wait on a formality when the feeling's plainly already settled. Jack crossed the room and took both her hands. I know this is not how anybody dreams of being asked, he said, low enough it felt private even in a room full of people. In front of a bank and a board and half the gossips who have spent a season talking about us. But I would have asked you regardless, given time. I am only asking sooner than I planned, and gladder for the chance than I expected to be. Marry me. Yes, Sarah said, before he had even finished the word. Yes, all of it. The land, the family, all of it. The hall broke into applause before the Reverend had even opened his book. Near the back, even Mrs. Aldridge was clapping, her face clear of the sour look she had worn all summer. The ceremony was simple, no time for anything else, no dress but the one she had worn to argue her own case an hour before. When Jack kissed his bride in front of the whole Grange Hall, the applause rattled the windows. Hattie cried through the whole thing and denied it fiercely after, blaming dust in the hall. Tommy grinned like he had won something himself and made a point of shaking the foreman's hand, telling him loudly it was not too late to hire better help if he had learned his lesson. A fiddle appeared from somewhere, and within the hour the hearing had turned into something closer to the fair, minus the string lights. Ashworth signed the renewal that same evening, muttering about paperwork being easier than arguing with an entire county. He left before the dancing started, but without the tight set to his jaw he had arrived with, which Sarah took as its own kind of apology. Outside, under a sky gone fully dark, Jack pulled her aside from the noise. Mrs. Calloway, he said, testing the words like he was not sure they would hold. That's going to take some getting used to. We have got time to get used to it. He kissed her once more, quieter than the one in front of the whole hall, and neither of them hurried back inside. A year turned the ranch over the way years do, clover fat and stubborn in the near pasture, the fence line mended clean, the garden Sarah had put in that first autumn coming back thicker than it had any right to. She was on her knees in the dirt one morning when Jack crouched down beside her without a word, the way he did most mornings now. Ashworth stopped by yesterday, Jack said. Said the banks had 3 women in asking about work since the hearing. Figured that was worth mentioning. Tell him he's welcome. Hattie's voice carried from the porch, steadier than it had been in years. If you two are done gossiping about bankers, there is coffee getting cold, and I made it strong, the way I like it." Sarah laughed, wiping her hands on her skirt. The same gesture from the first day, over a horse and a stone and a rancher who had not looked away. That evening, the three of them sat on the porch as the sky went gold to blue. Jack's hand found Sarah's. "Easy now. Tell me the story again," Hattie said, though she knew every word of it by heart. "Which part?" "The part where you nearly did not stay." Sarah looked out at the fields, gone soft and dark at the edges. "Nobody would hire me. 6 towns running, and I believed every one of them." She turned to Jack. "I did not understand yet that being hired was never what I needed." "What did you need?" "To be chosen," Sarah said. "Not for what I could do. For who I already was." She looked at the land beyond the rail, hers now, in every way that mattered. Nobody would hire me. But somebody finally asked. Turned out that was the only thing I had ever wanted. The sky went the rest of the way to dark, and none of them moved to go inside.